This story is a little sensitive to me because it's a story where I failed miserably.
The FBI has launched a manhunt here for a fugitive
John
married
and Julianne Demetrian were very much into the material trappings of the
They're
ultra.
most wanted white-collar crime fugitive.
It's extremely to find a routine financial fraud spin into a domestic extremist investigation.
You asked me to come out and tell you a story from my time in Honolulu.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know you were in Honolulu, but yes.
Right.
This was the American Greed.
Yeah, they did an episode of American Greed about this. And I love coming on your show because I get to tell stories that make me look great, right? I get to make me look like this fantastic agent who solves every crime and always gets the bad guy. This story is a little sensitive to me because it's a story where I failed miserably. There's no happy ending for me, but I'm happy to share it with you in the spirit of transparency.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, as long as I can get some clicks out of it, I'm willing to put you.
I know where your priorities are. My priorities are to make me look cool, but I'm happy as a friend to come out here and to talk to you because I love doing your show and I like and I always get good feedback from my appearances.
No, you don't.
Mostly I do. I also get like, why are you consorting with that guy?
Why are you? Oh, this. Why are you giving that guy a platform? How dare you? Yeah,
exactly.
I know. I get those.
Exactly. So, so let me give a little bit of background.
Yes.
So there's a fellow named John Dimitrian. Ethnically, not that it matters, half Greek, half Filipino. Grew up extremely wealthy in Hawaii, in Honolulu, the island of Oahu. He went to, his dad was a medical doctor, probably still is. His, I don't know what his mom did, doesn't matter. He went to Punahou High School. You know what Punahou is? Punahou is a school that Barack Obama went to.
Oh, okay.
So it is the place for rich kids in Hawaii to go to school. And it's a very great school, and the people there are wildly successful. Somewhere along the line, he meets a woman named Julianne Baldueza, who's 100% Filipina. Kind of not super rich, but kind of one of these, I call her Filipina princess, likes the best of everything, okay? And they get married in an expensive wedding ceremony in Waikiki, and they're together, okay? Mm-hmm. This is the early 2000s, let's say. John was a mortgage loan officer. You know,
That's enough said.
That's all you know.
Yeah. Ethically depraved.
Exactly. So, you know, he's out there, doing mortgages for people, both regular mortgages and kind of cash out mortgages. Because the thing with the people of Hawaii are a lot of them own houses that don't look like much, but they're worth a fortune because the land underneath their feet is worth a fortune because it's an island. They're not making any more. And people tend to inherit homes from their families. And sometimes those homes are completely paid off and people go get mortgages to get cash to either fix up the house or kind of deal with their day-to-day life. That's what John was doing. He was giving people both originating mortgages, second mortgages, cash out mortgages, all that. You get it.
Right.
He also, though, had a real penchant, he and Julie, for get-rich-quick schemes. So any get-rich-quick scheme that came down the pipeline where he thought he could make money, he latched onto. One of the most famous ones was featured on American Greed, and there's video on it if you wanted to use it for B-roll, of remember those curly light bulbs?
The pigtails.
Yeah. So he had these curly light bulbs that he said that if you plug it into your at your house, the very expensive curly light bulbs, what he had, it would purify the air. It would make you less sick. It would have all these incredible health benefits. He did infomercials on local television in Hawaii, trying to sell curly light bulbs to dum-dums. Right. And so again, we're talking about a guy here who has a very expensive wife. Who is trying to make money to keep her kind of fed.
Right.
And so he ended up forming his own mortgage company in 2001 called Mortgage Alliance. And they used to have like the corniest TV ads on TV, again, trying to sell regular mortgages and cash out mortgages. But their business, near as I could tell, was mostly legitimate. I'm sure they were involved in the shenanigans that everyone was involved in the mortgage industry at that time. You know, we were increasing people's income falsely, maybe creating a W-2 here or there, but nothing systemic.
Right. I hate to interrupt the program, but if you didn't know, my name's Matthew Cox, and I spent 13 years in prison for title theft. And this is how easy title theft is. I can be sitting in a Starbucks with my computer. I can go online, go to public records, get your address, name of the homeowner. I can create a deed, a satisfaction of mortgage. I can file that satisfaction of mortgage. I can then transfer the name of your home into someone else's name, or I could simply create a driver's license in the true homeowner's name. I can then sell the home or borrow against the home. And I can do all of that online sitting in Starbucks. I can apply for the mortgages online. I can open up the bank accounts online. I can go to the closing online. I can have all the documents notarized online, and I can have all of the money wired into my bank accounts online. I can then transfer that money out of those accounts to other accounts, or maybe I could buy precious metals, I could buy diamonds, and I can have all of that delivered anywhere I want by sitting in Starbucks. That's how easy it is to commit this crime now. And it's happening more and more every single day. If you think that you're not vulnerable, you're dead wrong. Do you know who's a potential victim of this crime? Anybody that owns a house. Anybody that thinks I can't be a victim is just absolutely dead wrong. I'm telling you right now, if you own a piece of property, you are a potential victim. The only way to stop the crime is to be notified by a monitoring service like Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock monitors your property records, alerts you of any changes, and if you are a victim, they jump in with their team of restoration experts to resolve the issue. You can get a 30-day free trial of their triple lock protection and a complimentary title history report by going to HometitleLock.com and using promo code MATT30, or click on the link in the description box. Don't let someone like me catch you off guard.
Let's jump forward to 2008. He had an idea. There was a lot of people who were risking foreclosure in Hawaii.
What happened with the curly light bulbs?
Kind of went nowhere.
No?
I mean, it was consumer fraud for sure.
Right.
But I think it was just sort of an embarrassing chapter in his life. Made some money at it probably, but not a ton.
Right.
But that was a recurring theme with him. Any like pyramid scheme he could get involved in, he would. He's not a smart guy. He never. Again, right. He went to college for a couple of years, failed out, went into the mortgage industry. You've met people like that. I've met people like that. College isn't for everyone. It doesn't make you a dum-dum, but he's kind of a dum-dum.
Right.
And, a rich kid, a spoiled rich kid. So eventually in 2008, they kind of switched the gears on Mortgage Alliance and make it a foreclosure abatement
And when
company.
was this?
2008.
Oh, yeah. Right. That's the perfect, obviously.
Right,
People
so-
are in foreclosure.
Right. So
everywhere.
houses in Hawaii were getting foreclosed upon left and right because homeowners in Hawaii had gotten themselves over their skis with their mortgages. They didn't have the income to support the mortgages. They were taking money out and then gambling it in Las Vegas and just doing all sorts of things, which I think we could look back on as being highly irresponsible with your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And the banks love to foreclose properties in Hawaii because you could actually like sell them. Like the bank, they're not just sitting there like for years, empty the way they were in some other states.
Right.
So the foreclosure abatement program, John's idea when people would come to him looking for help, and he had flyers all over advertising. It's your house. Are you facing foreclosure? We're going to get you out of foreclosure. The idea is that you would basically sell your house to John or to a straw buyer that John finds. Because he was super Christian, right? He had all these people from straw buyers at his church who were happy to step in. So you sell your house to a straw buyer for nothing, and maybe it was like a quick claim deed or whatever. And then they would somehow, through that process of that sale, I guess it wouldn't be a quick claim deed, it would be a real sale. They would extract whatever equity you had in that house. Because some of these houses, even if you're in foreclosure, have some value. And then, so there'd be some sack of money that comes out of this home sale, even though the home sale was to a straw buyer. The original homeowner gets to stay in their home. Okay, they're not going anywhere. And the idea, John's pitch to them was that we're going to take the money out, whatever equity you have in your house, and I'm going to invest it in a high yield investment program.
Okay.
Okay. And then from that, I'm going to make your money grow so much, we're going to pay off the mortgage that we're getting on your home. You'll be living there, and we'll pay off the straw buyer's mortgage, and then you're going to own your home outright.
Wow. Okay.
Right? What problems do you see with this plan?
I mean, I don't see that that's possible, and I don't see that in a crumbling economy, there's a lot of things you're going to invest in. They're going to give you a high yield.
Yeah.
And if there was enough equity there, couldn't you just sell the property and take the equity yourself? I mean, and of course you have to make all those payments in the meantime.
Yeah.
There's some issues.
Right. So the whole thing's a very bad idea, but you have to also understand that the people he was dealing with were not sophisticated financial minds like you.
And they're desperate.
They're desperate. They want to stay in their house. Again, most of these homes had been in their families for generations, and they're being told by a successful guy who's on television regularly wearing a fancy suit that they could remain in their homes and have their house paid off if they just do these 3 steps. Sell your house to somebody. And so he gets straw buyers from his church to kind of step in to be not a single mortgage payment was made though.
So he's not paying off the mortgages. He's just transferring the title to the straw buyers.
No, I think he's paying off the original mortgage.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he is selling it to a straw buyer who's getting a new mortgage.
Right. The new mortgage, all sorts of shenanigans going on there, right? Because you're signing off saying you're going to live in the house, false income, you're providing fake W-2s. That second mortgage that they're getting to buy this house is crooked as a barrel of snakes. There's nothing good happening there or nothing legal happening there.
Okay.
And the straw buyers, it was never really entirely clear to me what was in it for them. I think some were getting paid. Others were doing it out of Christian goodness to help these people stay in their homes.
Oh, the Christians,
Their hearts,
they're so trusting.
Their hearts are in the right place,
Right.
but they're often easy marks for stuff like this.
Very trusting.
Yeah. So, a couple dozen houses they're able to do this with. They don't make a single mortgage payment with the new mortgage.
So they just take it out and don't make one payment.
And you'll be shocked to learn that they also don't invest this money in anything that's value creating high yield.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know. Are you sitting down? And John and Julianne used this money to live an extravagant lifestyle. They had matching Maseratis, fancy suits. They had a Hummer, a Mercedes. Julie became addicted to expensive lingerie. She actually at one point went to her certified public accountant asking him if she could claim the lingerie as a tax deduction because she wore it under her clothing while she worked. CPA explained, no, you can't do that. But
Seems so unfair.
But they are spending money like it's going out of style. And but it's not their money, it's the equity that they've extracted from these houses. Meanwhile, not a single mortgage is being paid. The straw buyers are getting letters in the mail saying you're behind on the mortgage. They would go to John and Julianne and they would say, don't worry about it, we got this. The money's under, we're all good. They're not going to, And the straw buyers, the only thing at risk is their credit, right? They don't really foreclose on the house. They're not living there. They had no.
Well, I mean, if they signed all the legal documents and there was fraud involved, they are looking at fraud charges.
True. When interviewing them, and again, I wasn't the only investigator on this case. In fact, I wasn't even the original investigator. I was on a team of 3 people who were the entire financial crime apparatus of the FBI in Honolulu. I did the investment fraud stuff, and my 2 partners were dealing with this case. So I don't want to oversell it that I was the genius behind building the case here. But I'm kind of watching it all unfold, and we're bouncing ideas off of each other while smarter agents were actually investigating this case. The other thing to understand is that the agents are also dealing with 50 other mortgage fraud cases at the time. So while this case was important and interesting to them, it was not their only preoccupation. It soon became their only preoccupation, as well as mine, when because of what happened later. We'll get to that.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm buying your $500,000 house.
Mm-hmm.
You owe $350,000 on it. You're behind.
Way behind.
Payments, fees, everything. It's another $50,000. So you owe the bank $400,000.
Yeah.
I come in and I buy it from you for $500,000. At closing, you should get the $100,000. So my question is, the straw buyer, is he bringing the $100,000?
No.
Is he bringing a down payment?
No.
Is somebody else is bringing it? Or is he bringing it, but he's getting it back? Are they somehow getting the seller to give them that $100,000 back, or are they working with the title company to get the money sent back to them, or are they extracting it through some kind of an invoice?
You're asking how did the
borrowers not get the $100,000 equity?
How did the borrowers? The previous owners of the house?
Yes.
Okay, well,
You're right. I'm sorry, the sellers.
The sellers, thank you. The sellers walk into this knowing that this is just a plan for John and Julianne Dimitrion. They may very well have gotten a check for $100,000 that was handed right off to John and Julianne.
Okay.
They were not being, well, I guess in a sense they're being defrauded, but their whole thing was, I'm going to smart mortgage professionals so I could stay in my house.
Right.
Not only can I just stay in my house, but they're going to pay off all mortgages on my house because they are able to invest this money so wisely.
Right. Yeah, I'm just curious.
So I'm a little. So perhaps during the title company, they did whatever paperwork to have the check cut to Mortgage Alliance, John and Julianne's company. Maybe they just did it as a handshake agreement. But the borrowers, the home sellers, were more than happy to give that money to John and Julianne, or else why bother?
Yeah, I used to say that there had been renovations done on the property, and then I would provide an invoice from a construction company, and then for roughly $100,000, they would cut a check to that. So the person I bought the house from never gets $100,000, because my fear is I give him $100,000 and then he's got to go get it transferred over, put it in his bank. At some point, he may say, "Hey, wait a second, I want to keep the $100,000, or I want some of this," or so it's better to just make sure he never gets it. But so I was wondering how they were going about doing it. But
also, have you ever heard of the term the prosperity gospel?
Isn't that when you is that what they call it, tithing? Is that like?
So my understanding would be like if I tithe, or if I'm a good Christian, like God is going to reward me and make me wealthy.
Bingo.
And that's what he's pitching, right? So the one guy, the tithing one, was when, remember, like if you give $100,000 to charity, you're going to get it back threefold or whatever, or something, sevenfold or whatever.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the main reason to be the Christian's like, God is going to make me rich. God is going to make me wealthy.
This will come back to me.
Yeah.
This charity will come back to me, which to me means it's not charity. You're expecting something back.
Right. So John and Julianne were absolutely adherents to the idea of the prosperity gospel, the idea that because they were such good Christians, God was going to rain money upon them. And
they
so,
don't sound like good Christians. I feel like they're spending money on lingerie and vacations.
Now, to be fair, John was the sound man at his church, at his mega church. He worked the soundboard, and Julianne starred in many Christian plays at that church. These were movers and shakers at their church. And again, they're also on TV, and you know how intoxicating that is and how people think that's a very big deal.
They think you're an expert.
I was at the gym the other day lifting weights at 5 a.m, and Fox Business News was on, and I look up, who do I see? Matt Cox trying to sell some mortgage product or whatever. Right. And my point, though, is that in the world of Hawaii, these were local celebrities, and people trusted them, and they were also movers and shakers in their church, and they also drove matching Maseratis. So why wouldn't you trust them? And these people were just basically put on a pedestal. Finally, this thing starts to collapse, and the banks begin filing suspicious activity reports with the FBI, showing that that the homeowners whose houses were the second homeowners, the buyers in the original bad transaction, their houses were starting to go into foreclosure. The banks are shocked that this had occurred, and they begin contacting the FBI. The bankers talk to some of their borrowers who explain what happened, and so they're telling my partners at the FBI that there's a real problem here. Mortgage Alliance has gone crazy and is involved in this really complicated scheme. And so there's one woman named Laura Cristo, who is one of the straw borrowers. And very nice lady, ran a Mexican restaurant with delicious food on Oahu. And she had met John and Julianne, I believe, at church. She was a very devout Christian herself, and kind of agreed to help out. And like her credit's ruined. She's getting notices of foreclosure. She got really screwed. And so we wire her up to go talk to John. And so she wires up with John, and she's like, "I'm going to go to the FBI." And John's like, "The FBI is already on me. I don't care. Go to the FBI." And so it was very good recording. And so finally, cutting to the chase, John and Julianne are indicted on wire fraud, conspiracy, and bank fraud charges. And so they, like all good people who were indicted for mortgage fraud, they decided to plead guilty. And
did they, or did they take all? What happened?
They pled guilty.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you guys arrest them, or did you just notify them when they came in?
We're a kinder, gentler FBI in Honolulu. Oh. They're not flight risks. They're not dangerous to the community. They could just they lawyer up. They got two lawyers. He got one lawyer. She got another. Very good attorneys. Friends of mine, both of those attorneys, because it's a very tight knit community in Hawaii.
Yeah, I don't like that they both got their own attorney. If my wife was like, "I need my own attorney," I'd be like, whoa. Why would you need your own attorney?
I think it's actually a conflict of interest for an attorney to represent both the husband and wife.
But I feel like we're married and we're a unit. We're in this together, and because the problem is that you get another attorney. The attorney, first thing they say is, "You need to cooperate against your husband."
Doesn't matter because neither one needed to cooperate against the other because they both chose to plead guilty.
Okay.
And again, April 2009.
Well, how much money was this, by the way?
It's an interesting question. Okay, so as always, I think they ended up getting, there's three numbers that are pertinent, right? The amount of the loss to the bank is kind of slightly different because the bank is now foreclosing upon these houses finally and going to recover some of that money through the foreclosure sale. Then there's the loss, which is how much did John and Julianne get? Which I think was, well into the high hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't think it was quite $1 million. Okay. And then there's the how much are they pleading to? Because again, with all these plea agreements, the U.S. Attorney's Office is picking the strongest, 4 or 5 transactions and using that as the charging mechanism, which wasn't all that high. So they were looking at only like 2 or 3 years in prison, according to the federal sentencing guidelines when they pled guilty, according to the plea agreement they entered into with the Department of Justice.
Oh, wow. So that's like, I mean, the problem is, like, for me, that's like 2 or 3 years. That's nothing. Like, yeah, that's not a big deal. But
not a big deal.
To a free somebody who's never been in the system, they think, oh my God, my life is over.
Exactly. And I think that's what happened. So what happens is then, and I'll say this, this, but some of your viewers may not, that the federal system of criminal justice is not like TV where the SWAT team kicks it down your door and you're kind of sitting there in prison chained to a wall waiting your sentencing. Unless you're a flight risk or a danger to the community or a violent criminal or something like that, for the most part, it's very humane. Hey, come on in on July 10 or in April 9 for your guilty plea. Okay, bring your passports. They surrender their passports to U.S. probation. Go on home. 90 days will do your sentencing, and then 90 days after that, you'll report to prison.
All right.
Right. So, and the whole time they would just be chilling out at home. That the vast majority of financial crime cases, that's how it works.
Right.
Okay. So the fact that they were allowed to surrender their passports and go home was not unusual, but as it turned out, it was a huge mistake.
Right. But
So-
they gave the passports. So where do you go without a passport? Or do you have a second passport?
Well, let's get ahead of. We're not getting ahead of
okay.
ourselves here. So again, passports surrendered, asset seizures take place, taking their cars, taking their money. John and Julianne have nothing. They are at this point of the story sleeping on air mattresses on one of their parents' floors. Okay, so things have gone horribly wrong. My impression is that Julie was very much at peace with the idea of going to prison for a couple years and putting this behind her and then moving on with her life. My impression is that John was not.
Okay.
Right. Both because of the fall from grace that he had, the fact that he really liked being a pillar in the community. He's a rich kid who went to Punahou, which is a very big deal that has a lot of social capital in Honolulu.
Is that a university?
No, that's the high school that Barack Obama went to that he went to.
Okay.
I mean, it's an excellent school. And so sentencing, July 6, 2010, everyone's in court. The Laura Christos are in court, the prosecutors in court, the attorneys in court. John and Julianne are a no-show. No, they're just not there at all. So what happens then?
What happens then? Are they saying that that they're fugitives, or are they saying that they absconded?
Well, they're gone. They don't show up. And so what the judge does, the judge finally issues a bench warrant.
Yeah.
So now there's a warrant for their arrest. At that moment, they become fugitives.
Yeah.
Fugitives for us to catch at the FBI.
Right.
And
You don't hand those over to kind of just hand it off to the U.S. Marshals and then forget about it? Or I already know we've had other stories where you've gone way out of your way to track these people down. But is that normal? Or do you give it to the U.S. Marshals, but you also look into it yourself?
The U.S. Marshals will defer to the investigating agency for catching their own fugitives.
Oh, okay.
Again, if we chose to do nothing, we could have contacted the U.S. Marshals and said, hey, this is your problem, not ours, but that's no way to run a law enforcement agency, right?
Okay.
The FBI had been investigating these guys now for a couple years and had a decent understanding as to who they were and what they were about. And also the FBI felt it was just kind of an affront that these guys didn't show up. So the marshals are certainly available to help in these situations, but it's really the FBI's problem, as well it should be, right? The FBI has, there's no magic skill to catching fugitives. The FBI is perfectly capable of doing it. The marshals are also very good at it. But again, having the base of knowledge about who these people are gave the FBI a leg up, and it made sense for this case to remain at the FBI.
How do you know that them not showing up, does that mean they're just hanging out in their old neighborhood? Or
well, that's the first place you check, right? You head out to their house, you talk to their parents. Where's John? Where's Julianne? I don't know. They're gone. They're just not around.
Can you tell when someone because it's not like when I fled Florida, you flee the lower 48 states, you just drive. Who knows where you go? But that's an island. Like you have to. Aren't there records?
You're asking the right questions,
Okay.
Matt Cox. We check the flight manifest. We check the ship manifest. There's no proof whatsoever that John and Julianne left the island.
Fake identities.
There's all sorts of possibilities we can consider. We figured out what happened.
Okay.
And we'll get to that. But but they're just gone. Okay. So 2011, we begin getting intel.
When did they leave by?
They did not show up for their own sentencing on July 6, 2010.
Okay.
Right. And so we're doing, I'm the publicity guy. So I'm on TV ranting and raving, like right along with the FBI while we look for the Dimitrions type stuff.
Right.
And nothing is hitting. Like there's no indication whatsoever. And so we're kind of puzzled. How do you get off this island? And so 2011, we begin getting interesting intel. You familiar with the sovereign citizen movement?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you probably just explain the sovereign citizen movement as you understand it, and I'll supplement your
Okay, my understanding is, and there's actually different variations.
Oh, there are.
But overall, they believe that they can make themselves sovereign citizens that are not members of the typical United States, of the United States. So they're saying, hey, I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm a sovereign citizen. I'm a citizen that is in charge of himself. And like I am my own country. I just happen to be in this country. And because of that, they think they're exempt from paying taxes, obeying the law, having a driver's license, all of this absolute insanity.
Right.
Right. And so your laws don't apply to me. I'm a sovereign citizen. I'm not a citizen of the United States. What do they call that when I gave up my citizenship or I relinquished my citizenship? I'm no longer a citizen. I wrote a letter. So
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
That's not
Right.
true,
And so you ever heard of right. So John and Julianne, somewhere along the line, appear to have embraced the sovereign citizen ideology.
God, listen, I don't know anybody I know some brilliant guys. That's too much. I know some smart guys that actually buy into this, but they have mental problems.
Yeah.
But a lot of people buy into this because they're just not that they're just not that sharp.
Right.
It's like the fact that you've convinced yourself that this is a possible thing is insane.
Right. But understand where they're coming from, right? Their world is collapsing upon them.
They're grasping at straws.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
There was you familiar with the straw man theory that the sovereign citizens believe in?
I've heard it many times. I probably couldn't articulate it.
Basically, it's the belief that the actual government of the United States establishes a secret account in your name filled with money. That if you do the right kind of, it's almost like a incantation to a god. But if you write these documents and you write things on checks and do that, then you can begin drawing upon the secret bank account filled with money in your name that's associated with your social security number. There's all sorts of wacky stuff like, okay, we can't put dashes between your social security number and all that.
They have you have to get your CUSIP number. Have you ever heard of the CUSIP number?
CUSIP, yeah.
CUSIP?
Yes, CUSIP.
Okay, CUSIP number.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I used to have one of the guys told me if you get your CUSIP number, you can get your black card issued to you.
Yeah.
And you can just use your account and then just buy whatever you want. It's like, stop.
Right. So a lot of sovereign citizens who've kind of bought into the straw man theory, and the two go really hand in hand, get themselves in trouble for trying to pay debts using counterfeit checks, thinking that money is going to then draw upon their secret account. They'll even I did 2 cases of people in Jacksonville who were creating U.S. Treasury checks on their computer with the right verbiage on it to draw from their straw man account, and both of which went to prison.
Right. The worst thing is that when they actually go through, because sometimes you'll put something through the bank and you'll actually get a check for they'll put $20,000 in your account.
Well, if you have the correct account and routing number, the check can bounce way late.
Right, and then they'll pull the money out, and then they're like, "This is working," and then you have it 3 weeks later. There's a warrant for your arrest, and you owe the bank $20,000.
Right.
And it's like, it didn't work. Well, no, what happened was, what happened was I didn't do it right. See, they always have some reason why it didn't quite work, as opposed to it just is bullshit.
Exactly. Right. In fact, investigating sovereign citizen check frauds is how I met and partnered up with the agent who put you in prison.
What?
Andrea.
No, oh, Andrea. I was going to say Candace. No, Andrea was a Secret Service.
She left and became a Treasury agent. And so I partnered with her on that because when you're drawing checks up on the U.S. Treasury, she has some expertise there and she was great to work with.
She was always very professional and very nice professional person.
All right. So the Demetrians have bought into this idea as part of the story. So at this point, there was also a guy in Ozark, Alabama named James Timothy Turner. And he had an organization, a sovereign citizen group called the Republic of the United States of America.
I feel like I've heard
or
this.
RUSA, R-U-S-A. Okay. And he had a big online presence, wrote books, kind of a really, really high profile guy. And his idea was that he is going to form an alternative government for the United States of America, for his group, RUSA, the Republic of the United States of America. And he needed to staff that with the best and brightest people when the revolution happened to kind of form this new government out of the ashes of the USA. Okay. And he was kind of like a cult leader. People bought into him and liked him. And somehow John Demetrian and Mr. Turner begin corresponding online, emails, text messages, instant messages. And John Demetrian says, listen, I'm a big guy in the mortgage industry here, and I have the ability, and I've figured out how to draw upon these straw man accounts to fund the Republic of the United States of America. And which is exactly music to Turner's ears, right? Because he believes in this stuff. Right. I mean, I don't think he's a con artist. I think he is a true believer. And so he agrees to make, he begins calling John Demetrian, his pet name for him was Little Brother. So he decides that Little Brother would be a perfect Secretary of the Treasury for the Republic of the United States of America. But what's the problem with that? John's going away.
Yeah.
And
John, well, we got to stop that.
and so he does. And so John convinces Turner that he would be the appropriate Secretary of the Treasury because he could access the straw man money. Turner needs this. Turner had, to his credit, had a sizable network of people who believed in this philosophy. People who were either disgruntled with the U.S. or bought into the sovereign citizen movement, one of which was a doctor who had some money. And so he convinces this doctor to help get John and Julianne off the island by, what do you call it?
Yacht? Boat?
Plane.
Plane.
By chartering a plane. And so on July 3, 2010, 3 days before their sentencing, a private aircraft lands in Honolulu Airport, and and John and Julianne meet the plane at the airport. But they wanted to make sure they were as inconspicuous as possible to the pilot. And so John pretends to be an epileptic, and like with the fits and all that. And Julianne pretends to be his nurse. And kind of being as weird and awkward as possible, so the pilot didn't want to kind of be intrusive and look at them and kind of like focus on them too much, because they got this guy like shaking like a leaf, and his nurse like kind of helping him onto the plane. And
Are they wearing disguises too?
We don't have the full information about what they were doing, but we were told that he was dressed as a person who was seriously infirmed, and she was dressed as a credible nurse. I don't know if she got dressed up in a full like nursing outfit from Party City or how that worked.
Maybe she already had some lingerie.
Perhaps, yeah. She was a lingerie girl. And so the plane flies them to Utah, and then they get off in Utah.
So there's no manifest saying they've left.
Private plane. And think of the plane like an Uber, like there's just some
get
guy,
in and go.
Yeah, and there's someone else footing the bill. What do they care?
Man, I hate, this isn't I know this isn't what people want to hear. What an adventure. You know what I'm saying? Like you're about to get sentenced, you take off on the run. Like I can't tell you, like I know the thrill of I wouldn't have done the epileptic thing. I probably got, I went with plastic surgery, but still, like this is like, wow, like what an adventure for them. Like it's bad. They're horrible people. They're bad people. I'm just saying in general, I know that excitement in
it's
them.
An exciting and innovative Hail Mary pass at the fourth quarter of the game. They make it to Utah. And then Mr. Turner arranges for them like this basically underground railroad of sovereign citizens to drive them all the way across the country from one car to another.
This is good. This is
from
like,
Utah to Alabama, like Dothan, Alabama area.
they're meeting in like, Waffle House parking lots and stuff. They switch vans.
Right. At one point, they're living in a RV in Lake Eufaula, Eufalla, Alabama. And then the trail goes cold for us trying to piece together what happened.
How did you get that far?
Well, you may be shocked to learn that when you're doing the James Turner thing, the FBI may try to keep their finger on the pulse of what you're up to.
Ah, okay.
Right. And so, so the FBI, we had agents investigating Turner and his movement that was going to overthrow the U.S. government. And then we had three goofballs, myself included, in Honolulu, like looking under palm trees for John and Julianne Demetrian. And it took a while before one of their confidential human sources on the Turner thing was able to tell their control agent this crazy story about this couple from Honolulu that little brothers, she didn't even know their names, that they flew across and got all across. And so we had this informant with Turner's organization telling the Turner people that. The Turner people were like, well, that's a weird story. And they began looking and find us in Honolulu, the team looking for John and Julianne. And so we were able to marry up the two cases pretty well.
And what is this guy, the Turner guy, does he have like a compound or something where he's there, he can keep these people, or?
No,
What,
I don't
they're
get that
just-
impression. I think a lot of these sovereign citizens are broke as a joke, and he was too, from what I gather.
So they're just hanging out. Where
They're hiding out. The last we heard, they were hiding out in an RV in Lake Eufaula, and then they were no longer there. Turner goes to jail for tax fraud. He's a former commercial fisherman. Lived in rural South Alabama. He tried to pay his taxes with a fictitious $300 million bond, and then helped others do the same with like bogus security. So that doesn't end well for him. So
How much time did he get? Do you know?
18 years. Yeah, he went to prison in 2013 for 18 years.
That's such a long time
Yeah.
for some paperwork.
Right.
It's
I mean,
just
he's a political
knucklehead.
prisoner, right?
Yeah.
People want him to be let loose.
God, I know so many of these guys in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And and my impression is that he is still very much a true believer.
I love it when they're filing paperwork the whole time. That's how they do their time. They keep filing paper. They're filing. They're putting judgments. And
Putting liens on judges'
the
house.
judges and the warden, and then they get recharged. They now have a charge where it's like domestic. They're like a domestic terrorist or some where they actually charge and they'll get another 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Like, stop filing this stuff. You're making these guys upset. You know.
So we go on this giant publicity campaign. We're now going nationwide. Turn in John and Julianne Demetrian, and we get tons and tons of leads of people who saw two short Filipinos, and we chased every single one of those down, and none of them were John and Julianne Demetrian. The one tell I have, and where John's 5'7", Julie is 4'11".
Right. She's
Tiny. And so when, even to this day, I get calls from people who say that they have found John and Julianne Demetrian because they are still at large. We never caught them. I failed. And I failed spectacularly.
You're hard on yourself.
I am hard on myself. I have this great win record, but I failed to find these two morons. And so,
What are they doing?
but when people call me and say, hey, listen, I think my next door neighbors are John and Julianne Demetrian, I take every single one of those calls seriously. Like, all right, tell me about them. Do you have pictures of them? Do you have this? Do you have that? Sometimes they send pictures. I'm like, this looks close. I mean, again, it's been a while, right? It's been now, 12 years since they disappeared. And I go, how tall is the lady? And they go, she's got to be 5'6". And I go, because I don't tell people that she's 4'11". I don't want confirmation bias. So 2012, American Greed comes out. The American Greed, for those of you who don't know, is a very popular kind of white-collar crime, true crime show on CNBC. They're launching a spin-off show called American Greed, The Fugitives.
Oh.
And on the very first episode in 2012 of American Greed, The Fugitives, they did an episode on John and Julianne Demetrian featuring me. It's available right now on Prime Video. If you go to
We have the link.
type in American Greed, The Fugitives, and you can watch it yourself. And they did an excellent job. And so we were so excited for this thing to air. You know, me and my partners filmed this thing. We did a good job. I know that it's a quality show that can make white collar crime stories come alive. I had no feel what the ratings are. So the night it's airing, we set up a command post at the FBI Honolulu. You know, we bring in pizza because it might be an all-nighter. We tell the front desk, the switchboard, all right, you can put the calls through to us, but if there's no, if we're all on the phone talking to people who with leads, here's some forms for you to fill out information on what the lead is, and I want you to hand carry it to us. You know, we're going to be going all night on this thing. The show comes on, not a single call.
None?
Not one call to the FBI when the show aired live for the first time.
What do these people look like? Are there photos online?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. They're most wanted white collar crime fugitives. The nice thing about American Greed is that they show the episodes fairly regularly. Like
Right.
you did an episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my guess is that every
Not from the same seat you were in.
right. My guess though is that every 6 to 8 months, someone calls you and says, "Dude, I just saw you on CNBC," and they're replaying that episode.
Yeah.
It's like whenever they have an hour to fill on CNBC between stock tickers or whatever, they just throw American Greed on.
Right.
And so the show has been in constant rotation since 2012. And leads come in to the FBI. Eventually, though, I retired, and it stopped being my problem, but it didn't stop being a thorn in my side. So then what happened as a private investigator is I became wildly famous and on Instagram and TikTok.
It is true. That is true.
And I did a video talking about basically telling a 90-second version of the story about how, this is not something I'm proud of, but this is what happened. At the end of the video, I'm like, so John and Julianne, if you're watching, give me a call. Let's go get a beer. I want to hear how you did it. And and they have not called me to get a beer. But what's happened though is my video of the Dimitrions, which I rerun every 6 months or so, is one of my most popular videos. I can count on getting hundreds of thousands of views. And then I get contacted by people who have seen John and Julianne, allegedly, and then I funnel that to the FBI in Honolulu because it's not my job to catch them.
Right.
And
And that's
so-
where I saw the video, and because I'm subscribed to your Instagram channel.
Right.
And so I get your stuff. So I saw that video and I said, we should do one on these guys, see if we can help catch them.
Right. So we have done some things. I'll tell you some things we did, some things we didn't do. These people never lived anywhere other than Hawaii. And so let's start with the premise that they're stupid for doing this, right? They could have served like 85% of 2 years if they got a good sentence and then be back in Hawaii, kicking it, making a name for themselves again, rebuilding their lives.
Right.
Life as a fugitive is no fun. Can you attest to that? You're looking over your shoulder.
For most people, yes, it is no fun. Especially documentation. How are you filing your taxes? What about retirement? Like there are major problems. Like it seems like, oh, I'm going to take off and start over. But once you realize it's nearly impossible in the United States to fabricate an entire identity that will pass muster with the IRS, with Social Security, with the State Department to get a passport, the DMV to get a driver's license. I got as close as you could get, and I was just never able to get a fully independent, unless you steal someone's identity and go with that, but then that person's still alive out there. It's almost impossible.
Right, exactly. So let's go through some of the theories that we've tossed around. I want to hear your thoughts. So one possibility is that somehow they figured out how to get out of the U.S. and they went to the Philippines or somewhere they may have some extended family, and they're living quite comfortably in the Philippines. Possible. Don't know how you do it because this is post 9/11 where passport control is super tight, and passports now are not something you can go, buy from some back office counterfeiter. There's watermarks and barcodes and stuff like that. So. I'm open to the idea that they got out of the country somehow and they're living quite comfortably in the Philippines, but I don't know how they did that. And I'm also the worldwide reach of the FBI and the worldwide reach of media that someone in the Philippines may there's a reward for them, $20,000, but it's still a reward. And for someone in the Philippines, that's the riches of the Orient. So why wouldn't someone in the Philippines let us know that and then facilitate the extradition?
Yeah, that doesn't. So the problem with that is that the problem with being on the run in general is not telling anybody or not reaching out to the people that you knew from your old life.
Bingo. So we'll get to that.
Okay.
No, I love your thought process because it's the same thought process we had. So we began putting the full court press on the Dimitrions and the Balduezas, his family and her family. And after kind of stonewalling and lying and lawyering up, We got an audience with Dr. Dimitrion, the dad, and he said that they're in touch. But they're in touch via again, this is a while ago, a kind of encrypted Skype app, basically. And, what do you call it? VPN? Virtual,
VPN.
So, so the whole thing, like,
it's just not tracking. It'd be very, very difficult.
Agreed, but it's untrackable to us, and he's not really cooperating.
Right.
And it's not enough for us to get a wiretap on him or his phone. And it's not like they're, and he says they're off their rockers and still talking about we're going to be drawing up, still talking, crazy conspiracy, sovereign citizen stuff, and all that. And so,
but you don't know. He didn't give. Did he give any indication to whether they were in the 48?
If he knew, he wasn't telling.
Okay.
His story was that he didn't know.
Right. Okay.
And but it gives me sense that there's proof of life, right? That they're that they weren't just killed and lying in some circle grave because they pissed off a sovereign citizen in Alabama.
Right.
So that's something.
I'm trying to think if they could. I was going to say, with the border being as secure as it is, like, couldn't they
go the other way?
Couldn't they
walk out backwards?
Right. Well, or leave and then come back in as saying, "Hey, I'm from South America."
Could
and give, because these guys are showing up with no paperwork. Mm-hmm. The problem is when they're coming in, is border control fingerprinting them?
Right. That's a problem.
Know.
They get busted for drunk driving or jaywalking, and they're fingerprinted. They're screwed because they're keep in mind they went through the process. They were processed. They were found guilty. They pled guilty, and they just missed their sentencing, and they've been on the run ever since then for 12 years now. And so
they're processed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so are they in the U.S.? Are they overseas? Are they living in Mexico? Are they living in the Caribbean? Am I going to go to a Club Med resort and have like John Demetrian get me a Shirley Temple? I don't know because they're smarter than I am, Matt.
I don't think that's true.
They have outsmarted me. And
well, that's for the moment.
So I called my friends at the FBI in Honolulu. I'm like, you got someone assigned to this? And they go, yeah. And they gave me the name of the agent. I didn't know who he or she was. And I go, you guys doing anything? And they go, yeah, we get a couple leads a week. And are from people who say they've seen the Dimitrions. And it's people who are watching my videos and contacting them. I'm sure it's got to be it. Or see American Greed on reruns. Yeah. And they go, we run everything down. It's just not them. It's never been them.
Yeah. Well, they also, could be, Mexican. They have that kind of facial, like,
they're ethnically ambiguous.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's like they could be Filipino, they could be Mexican, they could be maybe Asian, maybe who knows, like, what I'm saying. So they've got that skin, that colored skin that is beige,
right? Absolutely.
Who knows?
Like I talked to an agent down in Alabama after 9/11 attacks, and so because after the 9/11 attacks, we were getting barraged with phone calls from people saying that, hey, listen, my neighbor's Arab. He's super suspicious. He comes and goes at all hours of the night. And we were like, all right. And we go, what makes him so suspicious? He's coming and going all hours of the night. You go talk to the guy. He's like a cab driver. He's the nicest guy in the world. He's not a terrorist. And I go, what did you guys do in Alabama when there's not like an Arab population in your town? And he goes, oh, we got the same calls. And they go, we got some terrorists living next door. And I go, and they go, yeah, what do you know about them? They go, they're coming and going. They're real suspicious. All hours of the night. They're up to nothing. They're up to no good. They go, do you know their names? Yeah, it's Ramirez and Martinez. And so yeah, but the Demetrians may have that same impact on people where they could be ethnically anything they want. So I wish I had some great punchline for you, but here's the opportunity. American Greed has failed me. My Instagram and TikTok have failed me. Local Hawaii news, YouTube has failed me. I'm counting on Inside True Crime with Matthew Cox to find them. And then if it happens and somehow we're able to weasel our way into the reward, I will split that money with you 50-50.
You imagine some guy sees a couple of people they think are them. They throw a bag over their head, taser them, throw them into a van and drop them off. Cox, I got him. Throw them out there. I'm like, these are Guatemalans. What are you doing?
Yeah, right. They're picking soybeans. Leave them alone.
You can't be kidnapping people, dropping them off at my house.
Right. No Matthew Cox viewer should take the law into their own hands. Right. But if the viewer funnels it to Matt and I suss it out with our investigative abilities here, hand it off to the FBI and grab them, there's $20,000 sitting there with our name on it.
Yeah, nice.
I remember the night American Greed was airing, my boss like swings by and goes, "You guys good tonight? And you guys ready for this?" And I go, "We're ready." And I go, "Oh, hey, by the way, what's the reward?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know how much you want to give. How much am I allowed to give?" And I go, "You can sign off on $20,000, just with yourself. Otherwise, we got to go to headquarters and get funding." He didn't know this. And he goes, "All right, 20 grand. Well, we never discussed if it's 10 grand per Demetrian or 20 grand per Demetrian, or if it's 20 for the package. And so I feel all this is negotiable.
Right.
But I'm also the guy who wrote up the rewards. So it feels like a bit of a conflict of interest.
It doesn't sound like your boss knew exactly what you could have said. You're allowed to approve 100,000.
He just didn't know what the policy.
He signed something saying 100,000.
He's a smart boss, but he just didn't know what that particular policy was because he never encountered this. Because the idea of anyone becoming a fugitive from Hawaii is preposterous.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, that's the Dimitrians. So if any Matthew Cox viewers find the Dimitrians, they can contact me directly at Simon Investigations on TikTok and Instagram.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get this wrapped up for you.
Oh, much obliged, dude. Yeah, I really owe you one.
With the 4,000 views this is gonna get.
Do they have any like passion for ballroom dancing or anything?
Sadly, no. And even if they did, there's not a great way for me to get a hold of them. Is the problem? I was able to find the Tango King back when we told that story on your show about a Mexican fugitive I tracked down who happened to be this tango dancer. I was able to track him down in Mexico. I don't even have a lead on them. If I wanted to get a message to them, I couldn't. Let me tell you an idea that got shot down. I said, because I always believed in my heart, with no evidence, that either his parents or her parents truly know where they're hiding, and they're not sharing that with us. And so I came up with this idea where we get a bunch of Honolulu police officers and like 7 FBI agents, and we show up to one of the parents' houses with the lights on at like 2 a.m. Like create such a ruckus, bang on the door, get the parents out of bed, and tell them that we've been monitoring the sovereign citizen movement on a wiretap, and they say that they're going to murder John and Julianne, and they're sending a hit squad to kill them. You need to tell us where they are right now so we can rescue them from the hit squad. We'll deal with this other white collar crime stuff later, but where are they now? Because they're about to be killed. And my partners were like, "That's a great idea. That's such a good idea. That's such a good idea." We brought it to the Chief Division Counsel of the Honolulu Division of the FBI. He's like, "Are you fucking crazy?" He's like, "You're going to tell parents that their kids are about to be killed, so they'll tell you where their kids are hiding out." He goes, "Can you imagine how that makes us look, you monster?" And so I go, "All right, we'll go back to my desk and start thinking more."
Oh, that would be that would be good. I could yeah, you gotta do the
shock and awe,
emphatic. Oh my gosh, you can't.
Yeah, just with like police surrounding the house, like, "You've got to tell us their lives are in the damn balance." But yeah.
And then if they don't tell you, or even if they tell you and then you leave, you've got for a day or two just rolling around just in it's anguish, thinking, "Oh my God, my children!"
I know.
You're like,
yeah,
worth a try.
Just another day at the office. Made you look.
You got PTSD now,
right? And all right. They're in Nebraska. That's all I know. I mean, what do I do then?
Right.
And so it maybe it was a harebrained idea, but I was so frustrated with this because I knew in my heart that I was smarter than them, but they kept outsmarting me, and I was unable to find them.
Well, they found my co-defendant she had called her parents once, or her mom one time, and while she's talking to her, she ends up telling her that she's "What are you gonna do? She's like, "Oh, well, where are you? At least tell me where you are." And she tells her she's in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's helpful.
In Houston, Texas.
Getting warmer.
And so then 4 or 5 months later, after several phone calls, happens to say one day, "Oh yeah." She's like, "Well, hey, how's it going? What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm starting school tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, what kind of school?" "I'm going to what do you call that to cut hair?" Cosmetology school. I'm going to be a cosmetologist. I'm going to school. "Oh, okay." So now she knows she's in a cosmetology school in Houston, Texas.
Oh, that's helpful.
Right. There's only like 4.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
They called the U.S. Marshals, go by. "Do you know this person?" They're, "Oh, that's Becca." And they're like, "Oh yeah, she's in," they go, "Okay." And so they watch her for a day or so, and then one day she shows up, and they rush in there and grab her.
Yeah. See, you need one good lead, like the Dancing USA magazine thing when they caught that tango dancer, and then from that you can kind of exploit that and work that. We just never had that one good lead.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that she didn't realize what she had said because so much time had passed. He may have told, they may have dropped enough information that the parents could put it together, or maybe they don't even know that they don't even know they have the information.
Right.
They're not trying to put it together. Becky's mother actively wanted her to get caught so she could have her daughter back. These parents may not even realize that they do have the information. They're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? What do you know? And if you talk to them, they might say, well, I know this, and I know this, and I know that, but that's it. And then, the FBI would be like, okay, well, then that means that they're right here.
Yeah. Right. No, I think if the families both cooperated and were willing to sit down and speak candidly with the FBI, we probably get something there, but you just can't compel people to do that in our country.
The problem is that unfortunately we can't strap our citizens to chairs and beat the information.
Not the country and I live. That's not my America, Matt Cox.
So what I'm thinking is, damn it. What I was going to say is that what's funny is that, to me, for them to hide this long, they have to have regular jobs.
You'd think, yeah.
Because this guy's obviously, his get-rich-quick schemes, those types of things fall apart, and they eventually bring you to the attention of the authorities. And if you're continuing to commit some kind of fraud, it's going to catch up with them. But if he's gone this long, they may have sat down and had a kind of a come to Jesus talk with themselves and said, get a regular job.
We've had this conversation with me and the other folks who care about this case this many years later, that whatever they're doing to make a living, there are no human victims.
Yeah, because there would be...
Human victims are not quiet after they've been ripped off.
Right.
And so
that's what it's got to be. It's got to be a regular job. They got to be doing a regular whatever.
You'd think. Somewhere on planet Earth.
Or figured out a scam that they can set up, get the money, close it down, move somewhere else. That's
right.
And very few people don't come to the, can exist like that and not come to the attention of the authorities.
It's also important to note, just as a kind of side note, that the story I just told unfolded to us way later. Like we learned about their dramatic escape from Hawaii and then the cross-country trip and their connections with the sovereign citizens like a year after that had occurred.
Right.
And so by the time we even knew about that, the trail was ice cold.
And the guy Turner had he been grabbed?
I think he was in the legal process at that time. I didn't really focus a ton on his case. I just knew that he was the
because you would think that somebody could have gone to him. Why doesn't the FBI go to him and say, listen, if you can help us, you're doing 18 years, you can get a Rule 35 on this. Help me. Tell us where these people are if you know.
Yeah, it's a bit like cooperating down, though. Like, objectively, Turner is a bigger threat to the United States than John and Julianne Demetrian are.
Right, but you're not letting him out of jail. You're going to just take a couple. He's getting out eventually anyway. Instead of doing 18, hey, we're going to we're going to knock 3 years off of 18. You're not saying get out of jail free card.
Well, if he's got a story to tell, he knows how to reach out and tell that story to try play Let's Make a Deal.
Write him a letter.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so that's John and Julianne Demetrian. If anyone knows where they are, contact your local FBI office or Simon Investigations on Instagram.
Right. And that's the what's amazing about is that this is the only person you ever didn't catch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had other cases where I failed to make the case because the evidence was insufficient, but this is the only fugitive case I had that I just failed so miserably. And I promise anyone out there in YouTube land who's even considering hiring me, I'm a better investigator than this case would have you lead.
Wait a minute. So this really is the only people that took off and you didn't catch?
Right. Every fugitive.
I thought you had a couple more cases.
I have some cases to tell you about.
I thought they were missing too. I was like, I thought.
Oh, no. I have a couple more things to tell you about today to fill the time. But the Dimitrions is the headline story, and
that's pretty good. That's a good run.
It's a good batting average.
What was it? 26 years.
26 years.
26 years. You got a little Filipina couple that got snuck. Under the razor wire? That's what is a big deal.
Well, thank you. You should be my therapist.
That's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. You are somebody, Tom. You're not dumb. You're not dumb and ugly like everyone says. I don't have a whole lot of other cases that I never caught the fugitive, but I've worked a few more cases that we haven't discussed.
Bro. Think about that.
Well, the percentage of my cases that ever became fugitive cases was relatively small. So I can't claim that, I was this master fugitive hunter. I was never on a fugitive squad where I did nothing but that for a living. But if you work a white collar crime case against a bad guy and they decide to flee, you own that fugitive case. So eventually you get good at working fugitive cases, but I can't sit here and claim that being a manhunter is my specialty. Clearly, after the Dimitrions, right?
Well, you're really down on yourself.
I'm down. I'm totally down on myself. This is a giant failure for me, a very public failure because there was so much publicity.
And maybe they could come on the show virtually if they don't want to turn themselves in. Or
I have offered to have a beer with them on Instagram, and they have yet to take me up on it.
They could come. We could sneak them in here, have a little thing, and
You could chain me to a chair and give them a head start. We could all just hash out our differences.
Could you imagine them? Here's the thing. How many years has this been? This has been over 10 years.
Well,
10, 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
14 years. I mean, they have no idea what a joke the federal prison they would have gone. It would have been like going to. It would have been a camp. It would have been a high school. Like
imagine how good their pickleball game would be.
Oh man, like they would have been. And now's the time to go because of the Second Chance Act.
Yeah,
like you get 4 years, you're getting out in 2 years, probably maybe even less than that. So it's like not like, hey, you have to do out of 4, you have to do 3 and change. Now you go in on 4, you're walking out in 2 years.
You're like a hostage negotiator. You're making the case.
I mean, it like how horrible for them that they don't realize that by making by making this mistake, which you're a douchebag, for
I know
for
I
going.
am. I'm sorry.
No, not you.
Okay.
I'm saying for what this guy did.
Yeah,
he's a douchebag, but. If you can get over that, you made a mistake. Whatever.
Yeah, it happens.
Go to prison, do a couple years, get out, start your life over again. Instead, you're going to run the rest of your fucking life.
I know.
Ridiculous.
It's a terrible decision.
Yeah,
it's got to be just such a stressor.
Never going to have Social Security. Never going to. Can't really invest. Yeah. Because you realize, of course, you invest, you get 1099s, 1098s. They eventually the IRS realizes like we're getting 1098s for somebody who's using a 2-year-old kid's social security number. Yeah, right. It doesn't match the name we're getting, but we do know this is the address. Like it's just all stupid. It's hard to open bank accounts.
Well, and just not seeing your family. I mean, the people who are from Hawaii and kind of grew up there, they love Hawaii. Like Hawaii is their identity. That soil there means something to them, and the idea that they were trying to avoid 2 or 3 years in prison by never returning to Hawaii and seeing their families again was bonkers.
Yeah, there's silliness.
Yeah.
You know what the big thing is too, that their family is, because you said they were broke, their family is probably helping them. So now your family's in trouble. If you find out that, if at some point you find out that their families, oh yeah, my rich father sends me $2,000 or $3,000 a month to keep us afloat. Okay, well now your father's in trouble. Like, what are you doing?
I know. Yeah.
So anyway, so what else have you got?
All right, I got a case I want to tell you about that I worked. Oh gosh, it was pre 9/11, so probably like maybe it might have been the year 2000, might have been the late 90s. The subject's name was Kelly, and she was a bookkeeper for a machine tool company in suburban Chicago. And a very small company, but she ran the finances of the company, did everything. Her boss did what's probably the worst financial practice a small business owner can do. He signed blank checks and gave Kelly a stack of them so she could pay the bills of the company without bothering the boss, who was very busy running his machine tool company. Of all the internal controls that are out there to kind of make sure no one rips you off, signing blank checks is probably like the worst idea.
Right.
Okay. And so she took company checks and began making payable to herself and to her credit card.
Okay.
Okay. But because she was the bookkeeper, she also had the ability to intercept the bank statements when they came in. And this is back in the days where they would actually send you your check back. And she would like shred or tear up the checks when they would return. And then she'd make false entries into the accounting records of this small business to make it appear as if she's paying legitimate vendors of the company with the dollar amounts of these checks. That makes sense?
It is bad. It's a bad way to go about it. But
I mean, false vendor schemes are kind of, very, very common way to embezzle.
Typically, the better way to go about it, she's writing them to herself. The better way to go about it is to open up a corporation and open up a
false
bank
invoices.
account. Yeah, and then you can write those invoices for something that the company's already paying for.
Right.
And then so you maybe double up on those payments, or maybe you pay a larger invoice, and then from that account you could cut a check. So there's only one thing going for your lumber.
Right. I've seen every variation of this. This was kind of the very basic, most basic embezzlement scheme you can do. And the reason it was possible is because at this company, they had no segregation of duties. And when I consult with corporations and companies, I tell them that it's so important to make sure that the access to the assets of the company are with a different employee than the person who handles managing the accounting records of the company, right? If I make sure that the person who can write checks and sign checks is different than the person who enters that into QuickBooks, you're pretty much going to stop the possibility of embezzlements happening.
Right.
And but small businesses say, we can't afford 2 financial people, or I'm too busy to write the checks myself or maintain any security over the check stock.
Plus, I trust Kelly.
She's a member of our family. We're a corporate family.
Good person.
Right, exactly. She stole 272 signed checks totaling $517,000 made payable to Kelly and to her credit card.
Over what span?
About 18 months.
He didn't miss $500,000.
Business was booming, and I'm sure he missed it. But he took a look and he saw that my gosh, we're paying a lot of money for electricity. We're paying a lot of money for gasoline. We're paying a lot of money for this. We're paying a lot of money for that. Why aren't we making more money? Is what I always hear from the owners of these companies. But yeah, $517,000 until he finds it, until he begins actually asking those very questions, and starts seeing checks that were supposed to be going to pay the phone bill for the company that were actually going to Kelly and going to Kelly's credit card account. So the company owner finds this out, calls the FBI. I get assigned the case. Pretty easy case to work, right? You take a look at the checks, you take a look at the accounting records, you create a spreadsheet, kind of tallying it all up. $517,000 loss. So I've done everything I can to make the case. I get her credit card records, a lot of retail purchases happening there, clothing stores, a ton of money at clothing stores of all the things, but no giant big assets that I can kind of latch on to. But $517,000 over an 18-month period is a lot of money, but it's not like go crazy money. And and she wasn't highly paid at her regular job, probably making $50,000 a year or so, maybe $40,000. And
still a chunk of money. She didn't buy anything worth anything.
Nothing worth seizing. But here's where we go. So after I make that case and kind of gain understanding what happened, the next thing I do is to go talk to Kelly, right? And the way I would do it, I wouldn't go and arrest Kelly and because then I want to get the confession from her. And the reason I want to get the confession from her is the same with every single case, because it streamlines the guilty plea if I can get a signed confession from the bad guy. Right. And so I go to Kelly's house quite by accident. The timing was quite by accident. On, I don't know, it was like 1 PM. Get to her house. I pull into her driveway in my FBI car. I had another agent with me, and I'd always tell them, you're just here to prove it. You're here to avenge my death. If someone kills me, don't say anything. Knock on the door. Kelly answers. I'm in my suit. Identify myself. My name's Special Agent Tom Simon Kelly. I'm with the FBI. I need to talk to you. What do we need? What is this about? It's about your former employer. We got to talk. And I'm not here to arrest you. I just want to understand your perspective on what happened. And she's looking over her shoulder. She's like, my son's high school graduation is in 1 hour. My entire family is inside my house right now. And I go, how about this, Kelly? Tell your family that I'm doing a background check on one of your neighbors who's applied for a job requiring a top secret security clearance. You come to my car, we talk for 15, 20 minutes, and then you can go back in with your family. She goes, okay. So she goes inside. She comes out. We go down the steps to her house. She gets in the passenger seat of my car. I begin talking to her. She tells me that she confesses. She says, yeah, I did it. I go, why did you do it? And she goes, I have a shopping addiction. I go, well, what do you mean shopping addiction? What are you addicted to? She goes, I'm addicted to shopping. And I go, tell me more.
Yeah. I think that is a thing, maybe for some people.
I had never heard of it.
Okay.
And so she said, well, I see like an article of clothing I like, and then I put it on, and I think it looks good on me. Then I need to buy it in every single color. And I go, And I go, so you have like a closet filled with like clothing? She goes, yeah. And then she goes, I have a shopping addiction. I go, I'm so sorry. I hope you get the help you need. And
I'm going to send you somewhere where you can get that.
Why don't you sign right here on the confession? And so she signed the confession, and I kept my end of the bargain. I said, well, listen, Kelly, I don't know how this is going to play out. It's not up to me to decide what happens to you. Again, I never Mirandized her because she's not in my custody. I told her before the interview that she's free to leave at any time, and she doesn't have to talk to me, but I'd like to understand her perspective as to how this happened. And she thanked me very much, and she went to her kid's graduation, and I went back to the office and wrote it all up, and presented the case to the U.S. Attorney's office. I think. Did we indict her or do information? I don't think I went to the federal grand jury and told her, because I knew that she would take the path of least resistance. I think at some point we sent her a target letter telling her to get an attorney. She got an attorney. They worked out a plea deal where she would plead to an information, which is a charging mechanism in the federal system, and then a plea agreement. And she ended up pleading guilty to embezzling $517,000 from this machine tool company. Here's
a few months in jail, right?
Let me tell you this, because I think you're going to find this interesting, because I've never in 26 years seen someone do what she did. And I think it was so smart. Okay. You've been in these shoes. She's pleading guilty. Her attorney has said that as a metaphysical certainty, she will go to prison. At this point, it's the fall. What do most people, and so she pleads guilty. Her sentencing is going to be like 90 days in the future. And then it's probably going to be 60 days thereafter that she has to report to whatever Bureau of Prisons facility she's been assigned to. She pleads guilty, and no problem there. And at the end of her guilty plea, she said, "Judge, I want to start my prison time now, today." And the judge is like, "Well, this is highly unusual. You haven't been sentenced to prison yet." And she goes, "I know I'm going to be sentenced to prison. I want to put this behind me." And he's like, "Does the government have a problem with this?" I have no problem. The U.S. Attorney's Office had no problem. And her attorney, "Do you have a problem with this?" He goes, "She's hell-bent on getting this behind her." And so the judge said, "Well, we don't have the mechanism to like send you to prison right this second, but why don't we make your report date in 48 hours and you go report to prison?" And then, so she did. She went to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Chicago, turned herself in before her sentencing, and she got like 90 days of her sentence done before her actual sentencing date, which ended up being for 24 months. And she got 24 months in prison was her sentence, but she was already like got a couple months under her belt at this time. I see so many people putting off their sentencing because they're dreading it so much. Yeah. Your Honor, can my client have one more Christmas with their family before they report to prison? What a Merry Christmas that will be, Matt. Right. knowing that you're reporting to prison on December 28 or whatever. And so I think about that a lot as far as how dumb it was to have made that decision. And when the sentencing came around, her attorney tried to make the shopping addiction fly, and it was clear that the judge was not buying it. Right. I have no animus toward her. I hope she's doing well, whatever's going on. But I always think about that interesting decision she made to get it over with, to rip off the Band-Aid and just get as many days in prison under her belt before her actual sentencing would be, as one, a sign of good faith, and two, and to just, again, you're only going to be alive for so long. Why are we going to squander all this time with this thing hanging over her head, ruining her life, causing her stress? What do you think about her decision?
24. I mean, I think it's. I mean, obviously, I would want to get it over with as quickly as possible. Yeah. Because what ends up happening is you turn a 24-month sentence into 3-year sentence because you put it off for a year.
Exactly. And that whole time while you're awaiting that hammer to drop for you to actually report, it's terrible. She literally made the polar opposite decision that the Dimitrions made, right? Because they were going to be serving around the same amount of time. They decided to create 2 decades of stress and looking over their shoulder and running and hiding from the FBI and knowing that someday that knock on the door is going to happen. Kelly decided to get it over with and move on with her life. And I think she made the right call.
It's the cow and the buffalo. Difference between the cow and the buffalo, right? Didn't I say that the other day?
Yeah, I remember we talked about that. I don't remember.
Cows run from the rain, run from a storm, and eventually it catches up to them, overtakes them, and they're stuck for a longer period of time because they continue to run. But buffalo run into the storm and they run through it, and therefore, because they faced it, it's a much shorter storm because they run through it. They spend less time.
Kelly's the buffalo. The Dimitrions are the cows.
Yeah, they're still in the storm.
Yeah. That's my short story of Kelly. Actually, I shouldn't say her last name. That's my short story of Kelly.
Her name, this there, but her name is Kelly.
Her name was Kelly something else, and she married Mr. Kelly. Her legal name was Kelly. Yeah. And I've said that before in videos, so if you want to leave that in, you can. But so
she got 24 months though.
24 months for $500,000. Yeah,
and usually it's not that much. Like that seems. But then I guess most of the time when I think about people that they typically have cooperated.
I think it was the low end of the guidelines.
I don't think she had anybody to cooperate against, probably, right? It was just her.
Yeah, just her. And low end of the guidelines. I don't think she paid any restitution back. We didn't take the time to seize her sweaters because there's no economic value there. So she came back to probably a pretty kick-ass wardrobe.
The people that cooperated against me the first time, they'd stolen half of their loss amount was like $500,000. Mm-hmm. And they only got 30 and 90 days in jail, but they got a 5K one. Mm-hmm. So that you're right. Maybe it would have been a year or 2 years at that time for them. She's fine.
Yeah, no, again, the only thing haunting her is me telling the story. I think she's probably put this behind her. Can I share a story from my private investigative practice, not my FBI job?
Yes. Okay. I love the story you told about the Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. This one's less tragic than that. I was contacted, I got to be a little vague and you'll understand why. I was contacted by a small group of truck drivers in a major American port city, let's say. I don't want to narrow it down too much, but a port city where a lot of shipping happens from the port. And
you did a TikTok on this, right?
Well, yeah, I did TikTok. My TikToks have right of first refusal over your show.
Yeah, but I get the good stuff. I don't get the 90-second version.
Yeah, you get the extended 12-inch disco single version.
Nice.
Yeah. So these truckers hire me because they got a problem on their hands and they're just at their wits' end. The way it happened was this. Dock workers at the particular port where they would drop off their cargo were basically shaking down these truckers for bribes, cash bribes of like $20 to $50 for every load that they would drop off. In order to kind of, cut the line, think of a long line of trucks waiting there to drop off their cargo at the port for shipments overseas. And think about how advantageous it would be to the truckers, one, to be able to kind of cut that line and go do an express line and get to the front. And they were also treated very poorly by the dock workers if they did not pay these $20 to $50 bribes. Small dollar amounts, but dollar amounts that meant the world to these hardworking truckers who aren't making a fortune bringing the cargo on a local haul to the ports. And so they were like, we're sick of this. We want it to stop. What can you do? And I'm like, well, I have some ideas. And so I eventually kind of sell them on the idea that I can help them. And the first thing I do is some investigation to establish that this is in fact occurring, that they're not not crazy. And the dock workers all worked for one corporate who were shaking down the truckers, all worked for one corporation that had the contract in this particular city for kind of the unloading of cargo and the loading onto ships, or I guess, yeah. And so I began looking into the corporate structure of that company, and I see that company was based in this city, but they were a subsidiary of a large venture capitalist group, like investors, basically, like guys who don't care about the shipping or trucking industry or anything like that. They're just looking to kind of squeeze money out of this corporation based in the port city. So I did some ride-alongs with the truckers and determined that this is in fact happening. That there's a kind of haves and have-nots system of truckers who pay the bribes and truckers who do not pay the bribes to the dock workers who are just putting the cash in their pockets. The truckers were not being reimbursed by the company that hired them to haul. They could be making $120 on a haul from here just to bring the cargo to the port. And then they
hand over $40,
right? So it's a lot of money to them as a percentage. That's of that, even though it wasn't a huge dollar amount. And so once I kind of established what happened, I came up with a plan that the truckers bought into, and I said, why don't we do this? And so I wrote a letter, basically a whistleblower letter. Now the truckers were terrified that they would be found out as the people who were going to, if they tried to make the stop, that the harassment would be bad. They feared violence. They feared a lot. They feared these dock workers economically and personally. And so they didn't want their names associated with it, but I was happy to have my name associated with it. And so I researched the name of the CEO of the parent company who oversaw the dock workers, the CFO, chief financial officer, and then the general counsel, the head attorney. I looked them up on LinkedIn, kind of random and all that, and figured out who those people were, looked at their corporate backgrounds and where they had been before, and also the name of the CEO of the venture capital company that kind of had owned all the stock of this company. Right, that makes sense. So there's a CEO locally, and then there's a CEO of the venture capital company that kind of funds them, that owns them. Right. So I basically just wrote a letter to all three of these people saying, my name's Tom Simon. I'm a former FBI special agent, currently working as a licensed private investigator. I've been engaged by some truckers, and I basically spell out exactly what's going on in great detail. And at the very end, I say, my clients don't want money from you. They don't want anything from you. All they want is for this to stop, so they can make a living. And I go, this is a human resources problem for you. So I'm bringing this to you as a whistleblower, kind of a cutout whistleblower, so you guys can deal with it, settle your shit. But if you don't, within the next 30 days, I'm going to be taking this information. I'm going to be presenting this information to your parent company, who owns you, the CEO there, letting them know. And if that fails to do anything, I'm bringing this to the FBI, my former employer, for whatever investigation they deem appropriate. But my clients don't want any of that to happen. They're hoping that you can settle this. And so I thought it would have more credibility rather than just dropping it in the mail or sending an email to them. I went to their corporate headquarters and I dressed up kind of nice. I had 3 envelopes, one with the CEO's name, CFO, and general counsel. And their corporate office was super secure, hard to get into. But I waited by the door until someone else was walking up. I began putting like a card that didn't, my wallet up against the clicker system. I go, God damn it, it's not working again. Guys, here, I'll buzz you in. And so he buzzes me in. I go up the elevator to the building had multiple companies and to where their offices are. And it's like the glass door there. There's no receptionist. And I kind of knock on it, and someone comes to the window and says, "Yeah, can I help you?" I go, "Yeah, okay, I just need to drop off these envelopes." And so I drop off the envelopes, and I go, "Could you just hand these to John, Mike, and Louie?" And they say, "Yeah, no problem." I go, "Thanks so much." And then I turn on my heels and leave. I just thought it would be more impactful if they realize not only is this guy investigating us, but he's able to kind of penetrate our entire security system and hand envelopes to that appear on their desks later that day. And so I get the next day, I get an email from the CFO, and he was a total dick. And he's like, "Please provide us with proof that this is occurring." And I said, and I wrote him back and said, "I'm not providing you proof that this is occurring. You have to do your own internal investigation." And I said, "This isn't my, I'm letting you know this is happening. And I go, but I'm not doing a presentation of evidence to you. I'll do my presentation of evidence to the FBI, and we're email back." And then he writes me back like a 1-line email that says, "Since you are unable to provide proof, we will consider this matter closed." And or I think he said, we conducted our investigation. There's no truth to this. Since you are unable to provide proof. And I wrote him back and said, "I'm unsurprised that you were unable to learn the truth in your investigation over the course of the past 20 hours."
Right.
And I said, "No problem." And I go, I'll just take my concerns to your parent company and to the FBI. But please, understand that I think you're making a terrible mistake. And I sent that to him. And then I had an informant, I probably shouldn't get too deep into this, inside the trailer there at the port where the parent company was. And the truckers introduced me to somebody who was the informant. And so I heard the next day that my informant tells me that next day, all hands need to be on deck at the port, and an army of attorneys and human resources people from the corporate headquarters went to the on-site, separated every employee, and basically interrogated them. And they ended up firing like a dozen employees who were there at the port, who were taking the bribes. They just canned them there after they separated all the employees and interrogated them.
So once they separated them, guys must have started saying, "Yeah, I've done that before."
Count on it.
So Joe has.
Or it's not. Yeah, right. Count on it.
All of us. Yeah.
And so, and then I heard from the truckers that the problem was solved.
Right.
And no one went to prison. No one got in trouble. I never had to tell the FBI. I later hear from a human resources person, contacts me and calls me and says, "Hey, just want to let you know that we resolved that issue at the ports that you brought to our attention." And I go, "I'm so glad you did." And I heard that. I'm hearing that from the truckers as well. And I'm just glad that you guys have cleaned up your own corporate culture, and you're welcome. And so I was just so happy with the resolution of that case. I mean, I've spent my whole career putting people in orange jumpsuits, but it doesn't always have to be the case. You know, if there's a way that you can kind of work around that and let people know, maybe even at the tip of a sword, that you got to do the right thing, or at least look out for your own economic self-interest. They did, and I keep in touch with those truckers, and they tell me that the line's long, but nobody's shaking them down, and they're getting the customer service that they need from this company now.
So because it happened so quickly, did you not move up the chain?
There was no need
Right,
to. Yeah, I never had to reach out for the parent company that owned them and the CEO and the venture capitalists and all that, because there was no need to. I don't know what happened behind the scenes between me dropping off the letters, the CFO kind of being a dick,
Right.
like 20 hours later, telling me they're going to do nothing, and then me basically saying, "Fine, I'll call your bluff. I'll move forward." And
Right.
then 24 hours later, it's like the beaches of Normandy with like this army of lawyers and human resources people.
Probably talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "That's a bad idea."
Yeah, like why are we putting our hand? Like, let's truly conduct an internal investigation into
Right.
this, and it's clearly that internal investigation bore some fruit for the company. So
right.
yeah, I mean that's kind of it's just a private investigative case I did that I thought might be interesting as far as coming up with solutions to problems, which is what I do.
Is there any? Is there a more common thing that people contact you about, or is it just across the board?
No. Most of the people, it's a little bit of everything, but I would say the majority of the people that contact me have been ripped off in embezzlements or investment frauds, and they want my help to recover the money or at least investigate it.
How hard is it to recover?
Well, what I do is this. It's like folding laundry. I do it so much. I investigate the case. Bad guy said he could double my money in 90 days. He's going to invest the money in crypto or whatever. First you establish, what is this guy truly here in the U.S., or is this some Asian female who sent a wrong number to them on WhatsApp that we're never going to find? And if it's somebody domestic, and quite often it is. I work up the case. I write up an FBI referral report. Basically, to take this case to the FBI. I've got all the documents. It's all very laid out. But instead of taking it to the FBI, I'll go to the bad guy, and I'll introduce myself, usually via email. My name's Tom Simon. I'm a former FBI special agent currently working as a licensed private investigator in Florida. Please take a moment to Google me to verify my authenticity. I've been engaged by John Smith to investigate a fraud that you conducted, where you took $235,000 from him. And as part of my investigation, I've created an FBI referral report, which is attached herein. I've not yet met with the FBI, but I have an appointment to meet with them on December 1st. But I'm hoping that I can cancel that meeting if you pay back my guy.
How often does that happen?
I got a good track record on it. What often happens is some of them dig in their heels and say and take their chances, but I follow through. This isn't an empty threat. I go to the FBI, present the case. The FBI is thrilled to get the case from me because I work it up in such a nice way. It's like on a silver platter for them. Sometimes they'll contact. I don't want to negotiate with them.
Yeah.
I would contact my client to make payment arrangements. And many of these guys end up getting into a payment arrangement where they don't have all the money right now, but they're paying the money back in installments. If my client's cool with it, I'm cool with that. Some, come up with the full lump sum and give it to my clients, and my clients are thrilled with me. And so that's kind of the lion's share of what I do. I'm a recovery man, I'm like a repo man.
Right. I was gonna say that makes me think of a story, but I can't remember the end of the story, so it's pointless. It was something along the lines of a guy. So I knew a guy that was kind of running a business opportunity scam,
Mm-hmm.
and he was contacted by. So he had a guy. Somehow or another, I do remember who the guy was. So do you remember? Remember there was a guy that used to run the hair club commercials. I liked it so much I bought. So size somebody or
I'm not just a client. I'm not the owner of the company. I'm a client. I'm a client, or a customer or whatever.
So he actually had a brother who was partners with them, and he got bought out, or maybe he was a silent partner. He had put in $25,000 into some get rich quick scheme.
Okay, so he was a hair club for men silent partner who lost money in a different thing.
Yes.
Okay.
And then he went and contacted my buddy who was running a business opportunity. And I hate to say a scam, it's scammy, but there were people that invested in the scam and made money. The problem is a lot of people want to invest in money and they think that it's going to just run itself. And the truth is it's still a job. Yeah. So most of them lose money, and they make it, what is it? False expectation earnings. So, and his business model was partially based on that. Yeah. So where these people think they're going to make a lot more money than they're going to make. Anyway, this guy comes to him and says, listen, I lost, and I don't know if it was 25,000 or 50, whatever it was, and says, this is what happened. I lost this. Yeah. And he actually goes to the other guy and tracks him down. He's like, here's what he told him. If you get me my 50,000 back or 25,000, I'll give you half. Yeah. And he thought, that's not bad. Like, this isn't, I'll go have a talk with him. Like, I felt bad for the guy. So he goes and he talks to the guy. He tracks the guy down. And he said, I walked in and he was just like, what did he say? He's like, it's an investment. He's like, stop. He's like, look, I've done, and he starts naming all the different things he's been a part of over the years. Like, he would set these things up, run them for 2 or 3 years, and then close it down and go to get another company and start over again, change his name. And so anyway, he goes to the guy, he explains the whole thing. He's like, look, here's the problem. I don't want the guy to he's going to end up going to the FBI. He's going to, you don't realize who this guy is. He does the whole thing. And I'm pretty sure the guy paid him back. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, did you get your money? He said, that motherfucker. He was like, I got him his 30 grand back or 40 grand back or whatever it was. He's like, he never paid me a dime. He's like, no, I really appreciate it. I was like, oh, you said you were gonna. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm good for it, bro. I'll get you. I'm gonna get it. And he never did.
That's why I don't do it that way.
Yeah.
I'm a one-man shop, right? I don't have a giant accounts receivable department to chase these people to the ends of the earth. And you're paying me for my time and my expertise. I don't want a percentage of your recovered money. Right. And I'm not working on a contingency. I'm not, and so, I charge what I charge for this type of assistance. And I also make sure I write up that I have no control over whether the FBI is going to open a case or not. It's not up to me. And I also can't promise you'll get your money back. But I think this is a better alternative than hiring an attorney and suing them, because that attorney is going to bleed you dry.
I guess I had one question. So those guys go on the run. So whenever they're caught, they're going to be, because they've already been convicted or whatever. Right. If they would have went on the run before conviction, is there a statute of limitations on their thing, or how does that work, I guess?
Right. The statute of limitations measures the amount of time between the last date of the fraud and when you indict them. And so you have 5 years for wire fraud and mail fraud, 10 years for bank fraud to actually seek out and get a criminal charge pending against them. Had they decided to take off and we never charged them, during the course of the investigation, then you can run out the statute of limitations. Right. But the statute of limitations is how long it takes for us to charge them.
Right. So if they commit the crime, and then they take off, they're never talked to or anything, and the FBI never indicts them, then the statute of limitations runs out. They can come back, everything's fine. But typically, if they take off or whatever, the FBI would go, let's indict. We don't know where they are. The statute of limitations is coming up. Let's indict them. They indict them, and now that's it. Doesn't matter if they come back 20 years later. You've been indicted. You're just waiting to be charged or waiting to go through the process.
That was another one of my harebrained schemes that got shot down, is that we would go to the parents saying, well, we just want to give you one last chance to turn them in, because on May 31st, the statute of limitations runs out and they can just come on home and we can't do anything about it. Hoping that they didn't understand this subtlety. And my chief division counsel again is like, are you crazy? You can't go promising them immunity from prosecution to trick them into giving themselves up. And so another bright idea down the toilet.
So it doesn't. It doesn't for them. It doesn't matter how long at this.
Nope,
point.
nope.
Yeah.
They will. They'll die fugitives,
And
or we'll catch them.
Won't they probably still? They're probably still getting another charge, right? Is it
I don't
possible?
know. I mean, it's a good question. I suspect that the judge will give them the high end of the guidelines after
Right.
kind of being on the FBI's white collar crime most wanted list for nearly 20 years. But I have no control over that either. I don't get hung up on their sentences. But yeah, there's no. In theory, they could be charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. I guess it'd be unlawful flight to avoid confinement. Oh, UFAC.
UFAC.
Yeah.
In acronyms. Is that what they call that? An acronym? That's when you use the first letter.
That's acronym.
Is
yeah,
it?
yeah. UFAC and UFAP are acronyms.
Oh, I
right.
thought maybe it was because you actually kind of make it a word. It's like ASAP. You know what I'm saying?
ASAP's also an acronym.
Oh, okay. I mean, I know it is.
You know,
but
it's not an
it means
acronym.
what?
FBI.
Yeah. Why not?
It's just initials. If you said Phoebe, acronym means
the Phoebes.
acronym means you're kind of turning it into a word.
Okay.
Like
I thought
NASA.
that was
NASCAR is an acronym. Yeah.
Okay, I was wrong. I thought that meant
NASCAR. What National Association Sports
Car. I don't know.
something America Racing.
Yeah, it's something
know
like that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is different than a palindrome, which is the same word forward and backwards.
Jeez.
Like race car.
The big brain.
Or Madam, I'm Adam.
And
Forward and backwards.
Like an abacus. Isn't it abacus?
What?
Do you know what abacus is?
No, but I don't think that's a palindrome.
Abacus?
Abacus.
Oh, what did I say? I said it wrong last time, right?
I don't know.
Abacus? Is it
None of us knew what it was.
Yeah, the old Chinese
Abacus.
Abacus. I knew I said it wrong last time.
You were such a hillbilly.
Yeah, well, we said Matt. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
And just so happened that video got 1 million views.
And people would
And
trashing me.
Well, that's what generates the content,
Yeah.
right? Is when someone decides, abacus. It's accounting. It's basically it was a calculator before the calculator.
Right. It was the
Chinese were
original-
faster on an abacus than I am on a calculator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've already, listen, I feel like I have a good grasp of your values and who you are as a person.
Yeah,
So
sure.
pretty sure I know you're going to be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be involved in this.
What?
So
I'm an open book.
So do you know who Tom Segura is?
The comedian?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to see him Thanksgiving weekend in Tallahassee. I'm going to. My son and I got tickets in Tallahassee.
To go see the show.
the concert. He's performing in Tallahassee
Okay, I thought you
Thanksgiving
meant-
the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know him personally.
Okay, that would have been too good, too easy. That would have been just right, like the.
Well, I think he's super funny. Are you about to tell me he's a terrible person?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I think he's exactly probably who he portrays. I'm exactly who I portray. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy. It's easier that way. So he and his wife.
Yeah, she's funny too.
Have started. They have a podcast.
Yeah, they're great.
Where they started they took what they'd already heard and they've run with it, and now they've turned it into a phenomenon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is that Garth Brooks may be a serial killer. Have you not heard this?
I have not heard this.
Fucking hilarious. And they're like, and then so because they started it, people lined up his tour schedule with missing women.
Oh my God!
in those things, and then that's turned into at the same time.
No, Segura and his bride were just having fun with this idea in kind of a birds aren't real sense, right?
Well, they're doing it. It's it's very deadpan.
Yeah.
So because they talk about it so often, there's so many, and they've gotten a ton of material out of this guy.
Okay, yeah.
It's gone on and on. And so it turned into that, and then it turned into they built this massive home, and there's a huge basement. And then somebody goes and does how much does a coffin take up? And so they can fit 300 bodies in the basement.
In Garth Brooks' basement.
Garth Brooks' his basement for 5,000 square feet. So it's gone from that to there's this massive list that's out there, which I've interviewed a girl the other day. Her name is Stacey Lee. And she's like, there is no list. I've done an exhaustive research on it, and there is no real list. It's just people saying it.
Yeah.
But it's going on and on. So they've taken it to the point where, like, Tom Segura comes in one day and he goes, and because he posts about it, right? Yeah. And he goes, it's official. Garth Brooks blocked me on social media.
Did he really?
So the lawyer writes up, right? Listen, he's heard from people that know Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
Garth Brooks does not think this is funny.
Well, nor should he.
I would say, to me, isn't that funny?
You kidding me? Some son of a bitch put out an internet theory that I'm a serial killer. You think I'm going to laugh that off?
To me, I'd be like, I got to go on the show. Let's go on the show and talk about this.
Okay, well,
I would.
All right, fair enough.
That's how you deal with it.
Right. No, blocking is not the proper way to do it. But not being thrilled with it is perfectly reasonable.
It is. He's obviously he is very, very protective of his reputation.
Yeah.
And one of the things but here's one of the weird things he did is he at one point, he became the character Chris Gaines.
Yeah, I remember that. He was his rock album. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And
for like a year.
He had the soul patch and the dark pair with the shoe polish in it. And
he traveled for like a year trying to get this to take off until the record labels were like, he did 3 albums.
Yeah, but they were no good.
Yeah. But and even if they were, I don't think anybody would be accepting of him. This is who you are.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with that.
Right.
So anyway, the point is that so now they're saying that this was his alter ego that may have been the actual serial killer.
So Chris Gaines is the serial killer, not Garth Brooks?
Right. So it's a whole thing. So what was the other thing they did the other day that was and this obviously isn't funny, which I hope you clean that up in the fucking thing where I laughed about it. Which was when the girl came out.
When she switches to the joke to the serious allegation.
Yeah, because I didn't know she was what it was. Please kind of chop that one part out because about 6 months ago, a woman came out and sued Garth Brooks for because she's alleging that he was sexually harassing him, sexually harassing her, and eventually even raped her.
Oh my heavens!
Right. So I'm laughing. That's what I'm saying. Because at first, when she said, "Well, there's a girl that came out."
Right,
with
but
these
he plays right into Segura's bit.
Right, but I start. I'm like, "That's not true." And then I didn't realize it was a real thing. So the girl I'm talking to, she says, "No." She sued him. She said she was raped. And then I was like, "Oh!" I was like, "Hey, I didn't know that." Wait a minute, Colby, fix this.
Oh, speaking of Colby, fix this. I caught so much shrapnel from my fans with you laughing at the idea of Karan Smith beating his wife to death with a hammer. I did a highlight reel of that, and everyone's like, "Why are you playing along with that monster?"
Good times.
I'm like, he's a convicted felon. What do you want? You meet people where they are.
That's not the first serial killer. So I thought it was a funny joke. You have a dark sense of humor. Anyway, so then these allegations come out where she's saying he's not the person you think. So here's what I talked to my buddy Pete, and I talked about this to this girl too. I looked online and I didn't do much of a look. You saw what I did. I just barely looked. And I was like, nobody's written a book about this. About the possibility that Garth Brooks is a serial killer.
Are you entertaining this seriously or are you having fun with this?
I'm having fun with it.
Okay.
It's obviously satire.
Okay, right, sure.
But I said, do you know how funny it would be I said, think about it. All we have to do is we compile a real list.
Yeah.
We talk about the origins of this started. Tom Segura, how he and his wife kind of started it, how it's taken on a world of its own, and then we investigate the real possibility. Now, of course, it's obviously bullshit because look, if I drive across America,
is the punchline of this great book you're going to write that Garth Brooks is not guilty?
No, I think we just don't know. We just put it together.
I hope you have the best legal team in America because you're going to be spending the rest of your life in court.
That's not all I'm going to do. He hasn't sued Tom Segura. So, because listen, as a matter of fact, there was actually a lawyer that wrote a whole, like an 8-page lawsuit against Garth Brooks and sent it to Segura trying to get him to say, hey, I'll sue this guy for you for banning him on social media he said, and the allegations in the lawsuit are hilarious. It's like he's infringing on Tom Segura's right to have fun. I mean, it's just, it's clearly a joke. He's, anyway, and Tom Segura, he's like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. But it is hilarious.
Yeah. So
my whole thing is that what you do is this. One, you start off it's a couple of chapters just kind of do the background where this came from.
Okay.
And then you do the whole, but let's line up the dates. And here's the list we've come up with. There's thus far 75 missing persons, and you do the whole thing. That's several pages. And then you do then you start looking into it, and what is the real possibility that this is true? And you talk to a psychiatrist that kind of deconstructs what a serial killer is, why. Like, listen, tons of serial killers are like truck drivers. Why? Because they can do this.
Right. This is true.
Right. And so is this a good cover? Yeah, it is a good cover. And then, so I've talked to, because I feel fairly, like I said, fairly certain about who you are as a person, I said, I reached out to an FBI agent and said, would you be interested in letting me interview you about this book about a potential serial killer, and just let me ask questions, you can answer them honestly. And he was like, yeah, he said, absolutely, I'd love that, it'd be great. Now I didn't mention that that it was Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, I said, then what you do is, so you get to interview a psychiatrist, you interview an FBI agent, you can contact several of the cold case detectives, talk to them about the cases.
Yeah.
And then as you've asked the question,
so
where
each chapter has some missing woman that you're telling her story, and then you kind of segue into what's the likelihood that Garth Brooks killed this woman.
At that point, I think that the detective is like, why are you wasting my time, and hangs up the phone on me. So, but you see, but you put that in it. That's what's kind of comical about it. So if you do this over the course of whatever, 150 pages, and you deconstruct it. But here's the thing, and at some point, maybe even contact this woman and see what she has to say. Now, her lawyers may say don't cooperate at all, but maybe we talk to her and her lawyer. What and we can always pull directly from the lawsuit. Yeah. If she's not willing to cooperate. The other thing would be, and this is where I was wondering I was going to talk to you about. I probably should have never given him this much information. I would have gotten a lot further had I not given you all this information. Was how hard would it be to track down a couple of former what are they called? Roadies? Roadies who helped put together Garth Brooks's sets, like breaks him down. So because they have interaction with him. They know him, they see him walking around. So you could ask them questions. Now they may say, what are you fucking talking about? This is insane. But they may also be like, no, listen, bro, there are times like this guy just disappears we don't know where he is for hours at a time. Like, that's what you want. Because then you're going to be like,
well, these guys are out there working wrenches. They expect Garth Brooks to be there inspecting.
Right. Well, even if but that's the whole thing. That's the fun of it. So you take that book, and when it's all said and done, you send it to Tom Segura. Am I saying it Segura?
Segura.
Okay. Segura.
Segura.
Segura. So you get it to him, and I thought I was like, oh wow, if you're gonna know the guy.
No. I'm a fan.
But what I was thinking is, like, I know comedians, so you can pretty much get in touch with almost anybody with about 3 phone calls.
It's easy,
right? You call this comedian, you got to know somebody. Yeah, so and so knows him. So call him. He knows him. Yeah, I know him. Great. I don't even need to talk to him. I just need to know, where can I mail this book? We're about to publish it. We'd love for him to take a look at it. It's based on, and because anything to have to do with this, he takes it. He's going to run with it.
Sure.
And you're going to sell a ton of copies. So the other thing is, so I don't know if you know this about this is what's happening in Garth Brooks, because his fans find it comical.
Okay.
So when you go to a Garth Brooks concert, they have the Jumbotron. And the person with the Jumbotron goes to anybody who's holding up signs that will be like, we love you, Garth.
I think I see where you're going with this. Okay.
He actually, there are guys that will hold up signs, and they actually have 2 signs. And so once they see that they're on the Jumbotron, and they're like, okay, they let go of the top sign, and it drops, and the next sign says, where are the bodies, G?
This has happened, or is this your fantasy?
Oh, it's happened. No, it's happened over and over again. It's a real thing. People are coming up with I actually thought about, this was one of the funny things. People are redoing his songs, only instead of like friends in low places, it's bodies in low places. So I'm thinking that might be the name of the of
bodies in low places.
Bodies in low places.
The book writes itself.
We need to search the basement.
Matt, you have no ethical problem with this at all?
Hell, you sound like my wife. She's like, did you understand that? I'm like, it's a joke. Tom Segura's doing it. It's comical.
Do you think that Tom Hanks thinks it's a joke that a certain percentage of the population believes he's a pedophile? And running underground children through tunnels? You don't think that bothers him at all? You don't think that he finds that a burr in his saddle?
I think everything probably bothers him. He's extremely liberal. He's leaving the country because Trump fucking won. I mean,
leave all that aside. He's a guy who's probably not a pedophile.
Oh no, probably
right.
Yeah.
And
no, I'd say probably 100%.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're on the same page. Yeah. And so I guess even though someone may be a high-profile public figure, they don't deserve that. What if someone decided they wanted to kill Garth Brooks because they loved your book so much?
Oh no, then they're psycho anyway. They're gonna go. I can't blame that on me.
I don't know. You don't need to be throwing gasoline on the flames of Americans.
Everybody is though. It's hilarious. It is funny. You know what?
I think a funny bit on a comedy podcast is very different than writing the book you're contemplating.
Judgment. Very judgmental. It's just like
what did he do to deserve this? He didn't.
I don't know. Well, I think, listen, to me, my wife said the same thing.
Okay, thank heavens. Thank heavens. There's at least two voices of reason in your life.
So here's what I was saying to her. She's like, well, what if someone did that to you? I said, I would immediately call up and say, bro, I got to come on the podcast. I said, because the moment you actually face it shuts it down.
Right.
Like if you're a public figure, you have to understand you're going to have a certain amount of scrutiny. People are going to mock you. They're going to joke. It's going to be, people are going to do satires. It's always, look at Trump. So what do? When they went to Trump, when they're like, he's garbage, his fans are garbage, he didn't sit there and block everybody and outrage. He goes out and paints a fucking garbage truck and drives it to his rally.
Yeah, he handled it well.
Right. Yeah. So you have to be able to handle certain things. Sometimes you lean into it and it shuts it down immediately.
Agreed. No, I think
only doing
from
it
a PR perspective, it makes a lot of sense.
Right. So I think he's going about this the wrong way. I'm just trying to help the guy.
I'm sure he appreciates your help. Calling this poor family man a serial killer.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's come on. I'm not saying it's a serial killer.
You're giving it oxygen.
It would be hilarious though. And who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what these people are going to say? And most of them, obviously, I think, you're going to talk to these guys and they'll be like, are you insane? And I'm going to put that. If they say that's not possible, it's insane, that's not, okay, then you're going to put that in there.
Fair enough. But the greater point is that we know that Garth Brooks isn't having fun with this, right? He took the time to block Tom Segura.
Which just makes me even laugh even harder.
I just think that it's not going to end well for you.
Oh, I'm be all right.
Well, anyone with $50 can sue anyone else. And this can end up being a very expensive venture for you defending yourself and defending your First Amendment right to call Garth Brooks a serial killer.
Satire.
I agree.
Very easy. Satire is very easily defendable.
Maybe you win this lawsuit, and you'll be walking around with a barrel instead of black T-shirts as your clothing because winning lawsuits is expensive.
As a barrel?
Barrel, like people, like in the Great Depression, people would have no clothing; they would wear a barrel.
Did anybody really wear a barrel?
I think not. It was in Popeye cartoons.
I'll be all right.
Yeah, all right.
So we'll see. Anyway, I got to track down some roadies.
All right. Well, I mean, as long as I'm not thanked in your book, let me know. I'm happy to help. I don't want my fingerprints on this shit.
Yeah, the roadies might be just like, yeah, bro, I've heard this. This is ridiculous. He's a good guy. He's this. But, a lot of people say he's not a good guy, like that this woman's not happy with him. But, it's also her, by the way, we talked about the allegation. Like, there's nothing credible that she's saying. Everything she's saying.
The woman who's accusing him of rape?
Yeah. It's like, oh, he was texting me this. And then, well, do you have the text? But no, one time he grabbed the phone and he erased all the text messages. You know what I'm saying? It's all of these convenient things that can't prove her story other than her word. I think she's just trying to shake him down for some money. But
I think the fact that she's still alive and walking this earth kind of undermines your thesis.
I should probably mention that. We could do pros and cons. We'll do pros and cons.
Right. Like Crossfire.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, if you like the video, hit the subscribe button. Also, please share the video, leave a comment. Also, we're going to leave all of Tom's links in the description box so you can get in contact with him, follow him on social media. He's got a great Instagram channel. And if you want to hire him, of course, by all means, you can get in touch with him by going to, I believe, probably Instagram. And you have a website?
Yeah, but Instagram, I have a link tree.
And a link tree.
Yeah.
Okay, so check it out. Also, I really, really appreciate you guys watching. And please consider joining our Patreon. It's $10 a month. We put Patreon exclusive content on that on the Patreon. Is it a channel or account with page? Patreon?
Stream.
Page.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon
page?
stream.
On the Patreon stream?
Yeah.
I don't think that's right either.
Okay.
On the Patreon page.
Content.
So
Premium content.
yeah, and also we don't edit it. So if you're concerned about all the little all the little edits and everything, you don't like that, well, then the unedited versions are on Patreon. Really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much. See ya.